a good friend happens to be here and hadn't planned on speaking, but I twisted his arm. Scott Minerd from Guggenheim Partners, he's their chief investment officer. I think that means that he's in charge of $130 billion, but I could be off by a wee bit. And they invested in everything under the sun. So, Scott, give us some wisdom.
Thank you, Alice. And, you know, it's been a great event. I mean, seriously, hasn't this been a phenomenally good event? Yeah. Alice, you really pulled it off. And I just want to congratulate you. And I want to thank everybody who's here and having the opportunity to speak to you today. You know, after following Dr. Rogoff and the Senator, I really don't feel that I have much left to add. But at the risk of being redundant, I'll speak from my prepared notes. I'd like to have you indulge me for a minute and talk a little bit about history. And in the 17th and 18th century, there was an economic model which became very popular called mercantilism. And under mercantilism, the nations of Europe expanded their territories into new regions and used those regions as an opportunity to extract resources and to bring them home and to bring the wealth from those resources back to their homes. There were certain benefits of being a member of the mercantilist system. For those areas where the mercantilists invested, there was population growth, there was the expansion of the rule of law, there was the development and input of technology into various regions of the world. But there were also disadvantages that came with mercantilism. First, mercantilism tended to foster a sense of dependency. There was exploitation of the region for their natural resources, while there was a lack of commitment to the development of local human capital. There are two stories for those who benefited from the mercantilist experiment, for those who exited. There was the success story, which the United States represented in the colonies of Britain. Those colonies succeeded as a nation because they developed education, they invested in their human capital, they encouraged and rewarded entrepreneurialism, they developed sources of domestic capital, they fostered the development of local industries, they invested in technology, and the local ownership and control of the factors of production were there in addition to the ownership and the control of natural resources. For other post-mercantilists, there was a darker path. Those people mistook job creation supported by natural resource extraction as economic growth and permanent industry. They mistook monies as value received in exchange for resources as revenues for sale of assets rather than asset disposition. They failed to invest in local capital, in infrastructure, and human capital development. They failed to foster local sources of capital and allowed private sector profits to accrue to foreign entities. They substituted the development of bureaucratic systems for the development of free enterprise. They fostered a high sense of dependency on the indigenous people through providing excessive government support. In general, they failed because they failed to incent economic independence and to support the development of human capital along with the development of domestic monetary capital. There is no shame in having exploited the advantage of local resources under the mercantilist model. Indeed, some of the greatest nations of the world, whether it was the United States or Canada or India, emerged from this system. Mercantilism was the spark that ignited the fire of local economic development. Nevertheless, There are those yet to successfully transform from the mercantilistic dependency into vibrant, healthy societies. A quick look at sub-Saharan Africa provides a glimpse of how bleak the post-mercantilist era can be. Today, Alaska, and indeed the entire Arctic, stands at a crossroads. You have benefited greatly from your vast resources. The Arctic nations, to a greater or lesser extent, have provided or facilitated the successful the Arctic nations, to a greater or lesser extent, have provided a foundation on which to build a successful post-mercantilist society. As for Alaska, the benefits of U.S. security, the presupposition of the rule of law, the protection of personal property are among the many other factors which make an analogy or a comparison to an emerging market a distortion at best. Yet, for Americans, Alaska, in many ways, is her emerging market. It is her final economic frontier. Winston Churchill referred to the resource-intensive colony of India as the jewel in the crown of the British Empire. Today, I would propose that Alaska is the crown jewel of America. And yet, India today represents one of the most vibrant and growing economies in the world. Alaska, within our lifetime, may become the most dynamic growth engine of all the states of the Union. Today, Alaska stands at the crossroads, and in many ways, the work undertaken here is the call to action. The challenges ahead are great, but so are the resources. It is a time like this, a pivotal moment in history, with the favor of good circumstance, which defines the future. Now is the time to develop the strategic relationships which will open the door to tomorrow. Do not mistake money or capital for friendship. There is plenty of capital in the world. There is plenty of monetary capital here in Alaska. Capital will flow where returns are attractive. Rather, find capital that will work with you. The genius of the sovereign wealth funds lies not in their monetary returns to the capital that they've invested, but to the returns that have accrued to their societies through the transfer of the human capital experience from working with those people who have managed the funds. The best capital partner for Alaska is the one that will share their talents as well as their money. Candidly, you don't need their money, but you do need their talent. Anyone will invest their money for a quick buck. Make sure you are getting more than money. Get their experience, get their knowledge, get their skills, and make them your own. Do not be fooled. You cannot do this alone. You need the help of the world, but not necessarily their money. Their money will help, but their human capital resource is to be traded for the rich resources of Alaska. Make their human capital your human capital. Involve your universities. Involve your native corporations. Develop your local financial institutions. Partner with your fellow citizens in the lower 48 and make sure that their knowledge becomes your knowledge. It won't be easy, and it will not be fast. But at the end, it will be yours. And it will become one of the great assets of the Arctic. And then, Alaska will be the jewel in the crown of America. And indeed, will become one of the many splendid jewels of the Arctic, which will become the crown jewel of the world. Thank you.